We all know that for the average Nigerian, the rising cost of fuel translates directly into a lower standard of living. But a major political debate that remains unresolved is this: if businesses are forced to pay more for petrol, how will they keep prices within the bounds of affordability for their customers? And does the NNPC and the political leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have a formula that quells the agitations of this political debate? Welcome to Politics and Powerplay. In this video, we will explore the root causes of Nigeria's petrol crisis and uncover the challenges plaguing the NNPC, including issues of petrol scarcity, overpricing, racketeering, and how it all translates to the daily lives of Nigerians. We will also attempt addressing the big question: is the Dangote Refinery being sabotaged? Nigeria, an oil-rich country constantly plagued by petrol crisis. But how a nation so blessed with abundant natural resources and yet continues to be overwhelmed by scarcity has remained a great issue of controversy. But who are the hidden faces behind this fuel crisis that affects the lives of over 200 million Nigerians? Well, perhaps you already are aware that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, popularly known as the NNPC, is the corporate colossus that sits at the center of the country's oil and gas industry. But what remains unclear is who are the unseen faces in control of the affairs of the NNPC and how well has it managed this vast wealth. We begin by taking a closer look at the NNPC. Established in 1977, the NNPC was supposed to be a major economic talisman, bringing Nigeria to prosperity by overseeing the production, refining, and distribution of petroleum products. But despite such a magnificent economic powerhouse in place, you perhaps are wondering, why has Nigeria been consistently faced with issues of fuel shortages and petrol price hike? In other words, why does the massive oil-rich country still struggle to provide petrol for its citizens? As a country with the largest oil reserves in Africa, Nigeria finds itself importing more than 90% of its refined petroleum products, a costly economic decision traceable to the inefficiencies and systemic corruption of the NNPC. Despite producing over 2 million barrels of crude oil per day currently, Nigeria's government-owned refineries have been underperforming for decades. In fact, all of the 4 refinery facilities managed by the NNPC have been reported to operate at a fraction of their capacity, as frequent breakdowns, poor maintenance, and widespread mismanagement have rendered them almost useless. In 2020, several reports indicate that Nigeria's refineries operated at less than 10% of their installed capacity. Another data revealed that between 2015 and 2019, the NNPC reported billions of naira in losses. But how does this inefficiency impact on the life of the everyday Nigerian? Well, in simple logic, the less fuel Nigeria refines, the more she imports. And so it is this vicious cycle of extracting her crude oil, exporting it to be refined, and then importing the finished product back at an inflated cost that has kept Nigeria in decades of economic depression. And who bears the burden of this added costs? Of course, the everyday Nigerian. I mean, the motorist, the civil servants, the traders, the artisan, and more, all of whose daily survival is dependent on the affordability of fuel. But the case of the Dangote Refinery adds another layer to the controversy. Conceived to be a game changer, this private refinery, now completed, has a built-in capacity to refine 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day. It also promises to end Nigerians' dependency on imported fuel and bring relief to millions. But months after its completion, it has been observed that production is yet to take off. And so certain political and economic analysts have argued that the delays are more than just technical difficulties holding it back. Could it be that there are deliberate attempts to sabotage the Dangote Refinery project? Think of this. Why would anyone want to sabotage a refinery that could potentially save Nigeria billions of dollars annually? Perhaps the answer might lie in two among top trending arguments online. First, it appears that there exists a complex web of vested interests within the petroleum business which not many are aware of, but the fact that Nigeria spends billions on petrol imports is an indication of how lucrative this business of petrol importation is, therefore justifying the possibility of vested interests. A second argument that backs up the first is that for years, a cartel of powerful individuals and corporations have continued to control the importation of refined petroleum into Nigeria, and there is therefore a fear that if the Dangote Refinery becomes operational, it could disrupt this monopoly, shifting billions in profits away from these established players. And so could this be why some believe the refinery is being sabotaged? But a flip side to the argument is the recent order by the president instructing the NNPC to sell crude to Dangote Refinery in Naira. Despite such an order, the popular perception has been that powerful interests within and outside the NNPC might want to sabotage the smooth operation of the Dangote Refinery to maintain their grip on the fuel importation industry. According to a top industry expert, and I quote, "The takeoff of the Dangote Refinery could completely change the dynamics of Nigeria's oil industry, as the government wouldn't need to spend so much on fuel subsidies and there would be less reliance on foreign imports. And so given this background, it is no wonder that some forces may not want to see this happen." Quote closed. As usual with most political and economic problems, there appears to be a third layer to the problem, and here is how. While the larger battle over refineries continue to play out, there are other secondary issues contributing to the petrol price hike and fuel scarcity in Nigeria. Overpricing, racketeering, and perpetual PMS scarcity are economic issues that have aggravated the Nigerian fuel crisis for decades. Statistical evidence reveals that across the nation, the price of petrol has constantly increased despite the assurances of price stability by each successive leadership, both during the military and democratic governments. For instance, in 2015, the price of a liter of petrol was about 87 naira. By 2023, prices surged to over 600 naira per liter, and today it's about 900 naira per liter at the official pump price. But how did it get this bad? Although several factors play a role: global oil prices, fluctuations in exchange rate, and of course, the massive fuel subsidies that the government has recently backed out of. However, these are only surface level issues, as at the heart of the problem is the artificial scarcity and hoarding of petrol to manipulate prices. And so certain filling stations in times of scarcity hot fuel, creating a demand that they can exploit, and by so doing, charge inflated prices by selling to black marketers at even high rates. These are the racketeers, and racketeering has become a practice that has become deeply entrenched in Nigeria's fuel supply chain. But who is to blame? Now keep in mind that for close to 50 years of its operation, the NNPC has played the dual role of operator and regulator in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. Meanwhile, it is important to note that the problem of scarcity has also given rise to an underground economy of petrol dealers, otherwise known as black market operators. These black marketers, as they are fondly called, buy petrol from corrupt filling stations and sell it to desperate Nigerians who are compelled to buy at exorbitant prices, as this is the only way to keep their vehicles and businesses running. Unfortunately, the impact of such a distorted value chain goes far beyond the pump, so that as petrol prices rises, so does the cost of everything else. From the increase in transportation fares to the skyrocketing of food prices, plus an inflation that spirals out of control. And the most vulnerable Nigerians, those who survive on daily earnings, are hit the hardest. As evident as these arguments may be presented, the real question remains: will the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu be able to tame the oil mafia and bring sanity to the systemic corruption in the NNPC? And will the Dangote Refinery finally survive the harsh policies of a system that has before now favored its monopoly? Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to click on the subscribe and notification button for more videos on politics and power play.